For more resources, visit rymonline.org.
One, two, three.
The Local Youth Worker is a daily podcast that's centered on 5 questions each week. Ranging from the practical to the professional, we're looking for answers to the questions you're asking. Whether you're in full-time, part-time, or even volunteer youth ministry, this podcast is for you.
All right, welcome back. I'm here with Josh and Matt. If you heard our show yesterday, we talked about some of the things that they've done well in ministry that have been beneficial, and so now we're swinging to the other end of the spectrum and asking what's the worst thing you've done in youth ministry. You don't have to get too detailed. You can. Sometimes those stories are funny, but we're not just sharing what's the worst thing we've done to laugh at it, but also just some advice and things that you've learned from your mistakes. So I know you guys haven't made many mistakes, but what could
you say? You want to do this for a couple days?
Yeah, that's right.
I think there's something that I learned that I didn't do a good job of, and that's not really engaging with like parents very well, like not communicating with them very well. Like I think in the beginning, I really thought, if I just get all these kids and really have these kids buy into a relationship with me and have them buy into what we're doing, like then the parents will they're all eager to send their kids to be with the youth pastor or to the youth group or whatever. And I realized over time that, especially for middle school kids, the parents really need to see the vision of the youth ministry, and they really need to know what it is that you're about and what it is that you're trying to do, because there's a lot of different kinds of youth ministries out there. There's a lot of kinds of just good things like after school YMCA programs and boys and girls clubs, and there's a lot of stuff that their kids could do, and they've got coaches involved in their life, and it's for parents. Sometimes they need to know why the youth ministry exists and why they should send their kids there, and you got to do that by kind of setting a vision for them and inviting them to bring their kids and participate into that. And it took me a while to kind of figure that out. And I remember one time we were doing a senior graduation thing, and there was this girl that was having she was in the church. They'd been in the church for a long time, and they really didn't get involved in the youth ministry until really her senior year. And I always wondered why. And I remember that senior year we were doing a senior graduation kind of dinner send-off, and we were giving them a charge and everything. And then I let the parents come up and speak. And her dad came up, and at the end of it, he said, I'm really glad that my daughter was involved in this youth group, because I was really hesitant to send her to this because I didn't really know what it was about. And until I found out that how much time they spent, you all spent reading God's Word and getting into God's Word and really studying it, I felt comfortable sending my daughter here. And I realized, I'd never even talked to him. We've been doing that since the beginning of the time we'd done youth ministry, but he had no idea. And I think he had a bad experience of youth ministry growing up, and so he just did not have a vision for what youth ministry should look like. And so I realized it was pretty important to get parents buy-in.
Yeah. So I think a lot of youth pastors, my natural tendency is to believe in process. A lot of youth pastors don't believe in process. You have kind of two things: your process and character, right? And so Josh was talking about character yesterday.
Yeah, I don't believe
about
in process.
Developing his character and stuff like that. And processes are really great. So a really good book, Sustainable Youth Ministry, Mark DeVries, really helps you when you think about processes. But one of the mistakes that I have personally will have a tendency to make is to believe in the process more in putting the boots on the ground and actually connecting with people. I mean, God ordained, people to go and, and bring his message to the world. And so sometimes I can get bogged down in making sure all of my processes work and checking all of my boxes. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm trying to protect myself from looking bad or being wrong. And you're just not doing ministry if you're worried about doing the process exactly right, more so than just loving students. And so I think that's a general tendency in my ministry, is to constantly remind myself, go and love students. Don't check all the boxes off. It's okay. You're not going to get everything done right now, and that's going to be fine.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice because we can definitely get so focused on that stuff that we lose perspective. So that's good.
That's so amazing. I am the exact opposite of you, man. I am like, I don't spend enough time at all on process, and every year when I'm kind of like evaluating the year, I'm like, man, I need to do a better job planning. I need to do a better job doing process stuff. In the exact same book, I was going to say, for me, one of the big failures, I think, in the beginning of my ministry was not doing any long-term planning.
Mm.
So I wasn't thinking about where we wanted to get as a youth ministry. And so then I didn't really have any idea of how to get there because I didn't know where I was going. And I really didn't have any of the processes and the things set up. I didn't have any planning. I didn't have any ways of communicating well. It was like all about the go hang out with students and connect with them, which was good and important. But to really create a stability for the youth ministry, but also I think just a responsibility in, really growing them spiritually. Yeah, we need to figure out how to do processes so that we can study the New Testament and then the Old Testament, do some topical studies, and then go do service projects and so I'm the guy who needs more process. Together we are the perfect youth pastor.
If only we
They
could
just need to
join.
come together.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's definitely a good balance there because I've heard youth pastors before saying they just recruit teachers to teach Sunday school, teach on whatever you want and however long you want, and they would basically just let them teach until they were begging to stop, and then they get somebody else. And sometimes the teachers would be teaching on the Book of Acts, instead of just kind of setting out a plan of, hey, that's like you said, New Testament, Old Testament. So yeah, you definitely need both there. That's good. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just even thinking along the lines of who we're recruiting for youth ministry. I know one of the problems, we want to love people and invite them into the church and fling the doors open wide and throw our arms open and invite people, but definitely made the mistake of not being vigilant enough in who I'm receiving as leaders and qualifying as leaders. That doesn't mean that all of your leaders need to be theologically, perfect and have every I dotted and T crossed, but you're really looking to say no to more people than you're looking to say yes to a lot of times. You've been given the charge of these young students and growing them in the faith, and that's not to scare our youth pastors, but just a reminder that our tendency is to not be as vigilant as we could be when we think about the character of those who lead our students.
Yeah, that's huge. Sure.
Well, I think that's absolutely true. And I think for me, I've had the experience of hiring some people on staff that I think character-wise were really good and faithful people, but culture-wise, they didn't fit our youth ministry at all. And I kind of two mistakes. One was a person that just didn't fit the culture of the youth ministry well, and so they weren't kind of connecting with our students. They weren't connecting with what we were doing, and it was always kind of friction in trying to get this person to do their job. And then on the other end of that, there was this person that I really, really liked, and great personality, but had really gone through some difficult times, just kind of coming into the role, and ended up being a lot of me doing a lot of pastoral care, shepherding, counseling this person. And so they weren't really doing their job that I had hired them to do because they were like in crisis. And so it was really a kind of catch-22 because it would maybe have been more damage to their soul to like just kind of kick them out the door. But at the same time, they really weren't doing the things that I really needed them to do. And so if I'd been able to see some of that beforehand, maybe wouldn't have brought them on to work with us. But
yeah, you're both bringing up a good point there. Just sometimes we're so hungry to get volunteers that if somebody's just willing, we're happy to let them in, but then it ends up creating more work for you. So that's huge to bring that up about volunteers. Anything else? That's good, guys.